Power Business, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. and Fridays, 6 to 7 p.m. on Power 98.7.
Welcome back to the Thursday evening edition of Power Business. I'm about to speak to someone with a very, very, very famous name. That is Jackie Kennedy, the founder and CEO of Lead Me. Jackie, I have to ask, how many times do you get that question of, oh my word, are you the Jackie O?
Good evening, Kara. Yes, I get that question all the time. It's a fantastic icebreaker. I actually love it.
Yeah, a very important name. Now, you founded a company called Lead Me. Talk us through what Lead Me and the Lead Me Academy in particular actually does.
Sure. So Lead Me Academy is an online leadership development program, and it has been designed to create more leaders at all levels within organizations. And what we do is we take participants from a range of organizations, whether they are quite small startup organizations right through to corporate, and we take them on a leadership journey, which is made up of 10 modules that are focused around a set of skills that are really great for both work and life. We take a very holistic approach to it. So we believe that, to lead, before you can lead others, you need to lead self. And so it's all about self-leadership and then from self-leadership into leading others within organizations. And it's a 12-month program. It's done mostly online. It's hyper-practical. It's time-conscious. And the idea is that you also have a personal coach that walks you through your journey. And you do online group sessions with your teams that allows you opportunity to engage and apply real learnings from what you get through the program into your work on the job and within the company. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah. When we talk about leadership, for a lot of people that want to start businesses and want to run businesses, again, it is the passion that drives them, that entrepreneurial spirit. It's only when you go through some particular leadership programs where you then suddenly discover new additional dimensions about what it takes to run a business, about what it takes to actually, manage employees, manage stakeholders, and manage a workforce. Do we see entrepreneurs appreciating the need and the value of leadership opportunities and leadership skills development initiatives like this one?
Definitely, without a doubt. I mean, Kaya, I must say, what's been so fascinating for us is that we actually work with a number of startup organizations. And when I say startup, I'm talking kind of fast-paced growing businesses. But, they can be anywhere from 50 people and up. And what we're seeing is this huge realization. I think any entrepreneur that starts a business, right, when they start out and they start that business, they suddenly realize, sure, it's one thing to have a business idea and to be passionate about this idea and to solve a problem and to want to get it off the ground. And wow, it's a whole other thing when you've got to start managing people and a team. And it just becomes so much more complex. I always laugh because so many entrepreneurs always say to me, sure, I thought it was just going to be easy, just me leading the way, getting this business started. And the hardest part is building that team, growing that team, retaining that team, and really getting that team to take the vision forward. And that's where leadership comes in, right? Leadership is at the heart of that. And you can't just have the leader at the top taking that forward. You need strong individuals throughout your organization that can take the lead and really drive the vision forward.
2 or 3 years ago, we all had to convince people to do things online because obviously we're used to living in a different way of doing things. Over the past couple of years, it's become essentially the only way to do things. Has this then enabled the online, offerings of your Leadership Academy to actually essentially just scale up in response to the fact that there is a need for leadership development and also the need to do these online offerings? Because guess what? You can't go and book a meeting room these days.
Yeah, so a great point, right? I personally have been working in the online space since in online education since probably the beginning of 2014. And then, and from there running in-house interventions, which was leadership development training and so on. And definitely it's taken quite a while for a lot of people and companies, even during the pandemic, to really come around to this idea of, hang on a second, we can do more online. And I think, to be honest with you, why we started Lead Me and why we actually took it online, we took it online before the pandemic, in fact, just before we started building it. And the reason being was that, more and more these days you're seeing in companies and teams, people don't have the time anymore to spend an entire week out of the office on a program like this, or even a full day. And also the reality is that in life, we love going to workshops and we get all excited and we learn something new and we go, oh, I'm definitely going to apply that back in the organization when I get back to work. And then the conference is over, you go back into the job, and 2 days later you've forgotten everything you learned. And so the reason why we actually built Lead Me Online is because we wanted to create something that is time conscious and practical. With Lead Me, you just spend 60 minutes learning online per week, but you also have other components, which is personalized coaching or team sessions. But the real benefit is that you are on a continuous learning journey. If you've ever tried to change behavior, you'll know that it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to keep working at it and coming back to it. So instead of these short-term interventions that don't really have an impact, you do something over the longer term with slightly shorter sessions, but it actually enables real behavioral change. So I've kind of answered your question in a bit of a roundabout there, but I think, yes, people really are coming around to it, not as nearly as quickly as one would have initially thought, but it really is helping us now. We're seeing more and more companies realizing this is practical, it's scalable, it's affordable, it's time conscious, and we can get the best of both worlds here with the blended learning process.
The other great benefit, of course, is that historically online offerings used to be an ad hoc rather than the way of doing things. And I imagine for people that run businesses, it is difficult for them to commit to a rigid schedule that says that the class will start at 9 and end at 10 because so many things come in when they wake up. So many things need to be fixed. And to be able to have that archive, that online archive that says whenever you've got the space, whenever you've got the opportunity, here's all the material rather than snippets of it. I think that's probably a very important game changer of the past couple of years.
Yeah, 100%. I think you've nailed it on the head. That's exactly it. We have to take into consideration that in this day and age, people are, let's face it, I hate the word busy. Oh, I'm so busy. But work is crazy, and entrepreneurs and businesses and employees that don't necessarily have that time. But it's so much more flexible when you can pick it up in the week. It's self-paced, and you can do that hour when you've got a gap. And that's just so much more practical.
Yeah, that sense of practicality is something that obviously all need to start taking advantage of. Now, in the world of leadership training, how do people then figure out what it is that they need to harness as particular, leadership skills? Is it simply a matter of you have to go through a catalog of different offerings and hope that you find the best?
So I think, a big part of leadership is really about leveling up one's soft skills. And so I think a lot of people need to start that process is actually about getting some 360-degree feedback on yourself as a leader. Where are your developmental areas? What are your strengths and weaknesses? And often a big part of leadership is actually soft skill development, because if you think about a leader, you think about their ability to think strategically, problem solve, critical thinking, decision making, to be able to effectively communicate, their EQ levels, their emotional intelligence. Where is that at? And so it's kind of thinking about, well, how do I upskill myself in these areas, and which of these areas do I need most? And we've combined our product has combined all of those into a program that takes you through so that you can develop all of those skills, and so that you can also get feedback from your colleagues and peers and so on where you're at, and then actively work on your specific goals and areas for development as you work through the program as it relates back to these leadership skills.
Yeah, a very important dimension there. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I want to look at some of the recent trends and developments in the world of work and employment that we've seen materializing over the past couple of years with Jackie Kennedy, the founder and CEO of Lead Me. Welcome back to the Thursday evening edition of Power Business. We're currently speaking to Jackie Kennedy, the founder and chief executive officer of Lead Me. They, of course, offer a range of leadership and soft skills development courses on an online platform, which makes it much easier for anyone to sort of then say, I'll plug in whenever I am available. Jackie, over the past couple of years, there's probably been an elevated need for new ways of leading and for more innovative ways of leading, because businesses may traditionally have structured themselves in a particular way. The past couple of years have said, well, actually, you don't write the rules. The pandemic is writing the rules. How important has it been for business leaders to actually know how to lead through moments of crisis?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it really has been a crazy time. And I think leaders more than ever have been under such extreme pressure to make some tough decisions and, really to think strategically about what kind of pivoting do they need to do in this moment in order to take the organization forward. And the most important thing there is a combination of, this ability to make decisions, but also to think about their people and what's right for the business. And it's been an incredibly tough time. And I think one of the things that we've seen is that often leaders at the top, they sometimes take it all on, and they think that they've got to make these decisions on their own. And what we've seen in organizations is that it's probably because of the organizational structures that have been in place for so long, which is, if you think about the bureaucracy of these kind of tall structures, hierarchical, with lots of layers and top management, a few top people right at the top making all the decisions. And what we're seeing is that it's just not working anymore. It's too bureaucratic and slow for a world that is requires fast, informed decisions, agility, and innovation, and in some instances just missing the wave. Holding on too tightly to something. You often see this in organizations where you've got a vision for this product or this service, and you this is what you dreamt about and what you're going to do, but the market or the pandemic or whatever the case is telling you that you need to, it's not responding, and it's just so difficult to let go of that vision. And sometimes what we're seeing is that top level leadership needs to start including lower level employees. If you want to be a customer-centric organization, your people on the front line know better, have the best interaction with what your users, your customers are really, how they're using your product, how they're experiencing it, and how they're engaging with it. And this change in structures is requiring leaders to bring in the people that really know and help get support in making these decisions and collaborate more effectively in order to be able to take the organization forward. I always think of this great case study. I mean, it's not pandemic specific, but it was before that. But if you think about the BlackBerry versus Apple case study, right? The BlackBerry founder, the guy right at the top, was hell-bent on sticking to what he saw the BlackBerry, that it was just going to be for email comms on this phone. And while everyone in the organization was telling him, no, there's a new way of doing things, we've got to think differently about the layout and the phone's use and so on, and he just wouldn't let go of this vision, and there you go. And in no time, Apple took over, and BlackBerry was no longer, who even knows what a BlackBerry? There's probably some people listening now that like, what's a BlackBerry? But I think it's a great example of it. And I think, it's just a changing in the market. And we've got leaders that have been really, really tough, but there's a different way that's coming in, and there's an opportunity to bring in those individuals throughout your organization that can really help you problem solve and strategize and make decisions so that you can move more quickly with more of a customer focus.
The other important dimension of leadership is to, of course, not restrict it to just the top executive leader, but perhaps have it embedded as a practice across the entire organization. Putting interns on the leadership track may sound like a bit of a stretch for some people, but of course, if you want to retain them, you may as well teach them how to run that organization properly.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing in the world of work is that the way we are coming together within an organization is changing. So, in the old structures, you have silos and we have departments, and you've got your marketing department and you've got your sales and your finance. And back in the day, there was very little interaction. And in some organizations, still now, you will see that there's, if you go in and you consult, you'll see, we've got a problem. We've got silo mentality within our organization. We're struggling to get this team interaction. And the reality is that the way of working has changed, and what it requires is people from all different levels and all different departments within an organization to come together and form almost like a task group or around a project team in order to solve a problem or innovate. And it takes people on all levels to do this. And when these new teams form, who's the leader of that team now? Because now they're out of their units, right? And so you need someone in that environment to step up and take the lead. And so this is this idea that these teams keep coming together, and they're not fixed. They keep, they keep coming and going. So different people are forming all the time to solve different problems. So now you've got the situation where you need more leaders within your organization, because these task force teams are needing different people in different instances on different projects to take the lead that are not generally a leader. They haven't been given that title or tenure. And what we often see in organizations is that, a lot of organizations have a weak middle layer. And what this means is they've got experts who are really good at their jobs. You always see this, like a great salesperson. And then that salesperson gets promoted to be a leader of a team, but they haven't been trained up to lead people. They're good at their job, but they haven't been trained up to lead people. And that's what you're seeing in these task forces with this new ways of working, that we're putting teams together to solve things, but now no one in that team can take the lead. And so this changing world of work is requiring leaders at all different levels.
And I think obviously for businesses that don't seem to appreciate the need to harness leadership throughout the organization, there's always a risk, as you're rightly saying, that you then end up promoting people who, in spite of a long track record in the company, quite simply then find themselves out of that depth and then having to turn around and manage an organization rather than managing their own individual portfolio.
Exactly. And I mean, this is commonplace, in these kind of old structured organizations where you see this people getting promoted based on length of service, so tenure, rather than ability or gone through a training program. And so often you see that, and it just doesn't work. They were great in their jobs, they were experts, and they were like top of their field, as I say, in sales or whatever the case is. But they haven't been trained up to manage a team, and it's a completely different set of skills.
Definitely a lot of deliberations that we need to sort of get people to understand the importance of learning how to do things properly. There's another concept that's emerged in recent times, and that's the great resignation of 2021. I imagine it isn't because people started hating their jobs, but a lot of circumstances conspired to actually facilitate this. Talk us through what it means.
Sure. So this is a really interesting one, and it's a topic around the world. We saw this in South Africa, we're seeing it in the States, and I think it's twofold. So the first part is the pandemic factors. So we saw a massive shift in workplace expectations, people being asked to work longer hours, less pay, they're working from home, so they're remote. Some people love it, some people hate it. They literally were at their jobs for the work environment. So it's a really bad experience for them. Some people had to take on all kinds of extra personal, dependencies and looking after kids and all of these things. And it just built up to making it so much harder, right? And we see for extreme burnout and toxic workplace cultures and companies that just didn't manage that from in-person into the remote world. And so I think some of those are some of the reasons for this huge resignation. But in actual fact, there were a whole lot of other forces at play that were already happening, and they are just growing rapidly. So if we think about the gig economy, now that has been growing rapidly for the last years. More and more people are becoming independent freelancers. They're hustling. They're realizing now, hey, I can work on my own time in my own way. I can leave this company and I can come back and contract to them for a certain number of hours and do some work. And I can also pick up other contracts, and basically they can increase their earning power. And so the gig economy is taking off, and it's taking off thanks to technology. Because what we're also seeing is that there are platforms on the rise like Upwork where you can, put yourself out there to this global market and get opportunities all around the world. Which is another big thing, right? So the job market is open. Globalization together with digitalization means that you no longer need to reside where you work. So I can realize now, hang on a second, I can take my skills and I can start earning pounds, and I can have the best of both worlds and live in South Africa but be earning pounds, right? So that's a whole new thing that's happening, and it's actually quite sad for some of the smaller companies in South Africa, because how do you start to compete with this global market on terms of pay and all of these things? But it's a reality, and it's happening. There's a rise in entrepreneurship. There's a rise in the creator network. It's never been easier than before. You've got things like YouTube, which is, all kinds of ways for you to make money and so on. And then there's the makers market with Etsy. Never before there've been, things like Shopify, Take-A-Lot, Amazon. You can now resell things online. You can create your own shop. It's incredible what you can do. And I think a lot of people are waking up to this realization, do I want to be stuck, and especially during the pandemic, because it's like, I'm working alone at home behind my computer all day long on Teams or Zoom with 8 hours of meetings. Is this the way I want to be working? There's this massive movement in the world towards balance. I want to be working in my own way, at my own time, in my own place, right? And with all of these movements, this has become easier than ever before. So, the market has really opened up for the worker and for the employee. So I think those forces were at play before the pandemic, and now they've fast-tracked it thanks to the pandemic.
One possible risk, of course, is that some may be left behind. There is, of course, the threat of the great displacement if individual employees aren't able to keep up with the evolution in the ways and the practices of the world of work. Is this something that business leaders have warmed up to realize that, well, if the world of technology, for example, and the world of automation is forcing us to do things differently, we have to be taking responsibility for the reskilling and upskilling?
Yes, definitely, without a doubt. Some of the bigger corporates that we speak to and involved with, I've actually been incredibly impressed to see the steps that they are taking to upskill and reskill their employees. And it's a combination of technology skills and soft skills that they are working on in order to get their people to where they need to be able to, the next frontier. And I think it's interesting to see, the World Economic Forum mentioning what are those top 10 skills. And it really is a combination of the skills that we're looking at by 2025 that organizations need to be thinking about. And most forward progressing organizations are working on this. They are thinking about upskilling. And the reality is that if they're not, they're going to be left behind.
The skills of where we are and the world we live in, what are these new skills that every single elite business leader needs to be acutely aware of in order for them to be able to manage their businesses successfully, particularly in the time called 2022?
Yeah, so I think some of the top skills there are really around analytical thinking and innovation. More and more this ability for complex problem solving, because, in this competitive global market, you kind of need to be constantly thinking ahead and one step ahead. So, analysis skills, critical thinking, creativity is a massive one, because ultimately, getting ahead of your competitors is really about creativity and being solution focused. Of course, technology is key. So technology around design and programming and those kind of things is at the frontier. But then also on that list is leadership and social influence and things like resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. When have we ever been in a world of work at this pace? And I think one of the biggest crushing things is really, are people able to manage their stress and do they have resiliency and are they flexible? Those individuals that have that ability and can take initiative and can really manage change are individuals and leaders that are going to thrive. Those who can't, it's really going to be a difficult place and we'll end up falling behind.
Yeah, and we definitely cannot afford to run the risk of falling behind, because in a country with such high unemployment and so many people excluded from the economy at large, we cannot afford to lose the few people that have been able to enter into the economic bandwagon, particularly because we need to turn around the economy by getting all hands on deck.
100%. Sure. More than ever. And I think one of the biggest things that we need is really to develop more entrepreneurs in this country, because literally there are not enough companies to support the number of people, sadly. And so on a personal note, I'm actually involved in an entrepreneurship program in addition to my own business. And I strongly feel that the way forward for South Africa is we need to be upskilling and developing more entrepreneurs so that people can start more businesses and hire more people. It's key to our success as a country.
Very interesting developments out there. Unfortunately, completely out of time. Thank you very much, Jackie Kennedy, the founder and CEO of LeadMe, giving us some insights into the way business leaders should start thinking, particularly in response to the world we live in and the way things are. There are some leadership courses that you can do. Online is obviously the way to go, which means that you are able to actually adopt the flexibility of even doing things on your own time. So that is definitely something to be recommended.